Lily had always been an adventurous child, full of curiosity and an unrelenting need to explore. She lived in a quaint house at the edge of a dense forest, a place her parents warned her never to wander into alone. But today, on a crisp autumn afternoon, she couldn't resist the pull of the trees. The vibrant orange and red leaves whispered promises of hidden secrets, and the cool breeze beckoned her deeper into the woods. She told her mother she was going for a quick walk, a habit that had always been safe in the past. But today felt different. As soon as Lily crossed the threshold of the forest's edge, a strange sensation washed over her, a mix of excitement and unease. She shrugged it off, walking further, the crunch of fallen leaves beneath her boots, the only sound in the still air. The sun filtered through the canopy above, casting long, eerie shadows on the forest floor. But Lily didn't notice. She was too engrossed in the world around her, too entranced by the twisting trees and the delicate webs of spider silk that glistened like diamonds in the sunlight. Time passed quickly as she ventured deeper. The path she was on soon faded, replaced by a maze of twisting trails that seemed to lead nowhere. Lily didn't mind. She loved the idea of discovering something no one else had found. She followed the winding paths, her thoughts consumed by the mystery of the woods. But when she glanced up at the sky, the sun was much lower than she remembered. Panic began to creep into her chest as the realization hit her she had wandered too far. She turned around, expecting to see the familiar outlines of her house and the clearing that marked the edge of the forest. But there was nothing. The trees seemed taller, more oppressive, and the way back wasn't clear anymore. A chill ran down her spine as the weight of her situation sank in. The forest had changed somehow, and she was completely alone. Her heart began to race as the once inviting woods now seemed like a labyrinth designed to trap her. She called out, "Mom, Dad," but her voice felt swallowed up by the trees as if the forest itself were closing in around her. The sky darkened quickly, and Lily's footsteps grew hurried and desperate. She tried retracing her steps, but every turn felt wrong. She didn't know which way was the right one. Fear gripped her as the shadows grew longer, and she felt the unmistakable sensation of being watched. Every rustling leaf, every snap of a twig sent her heart racing. Her mind raced too. Where were her parents? Why hadn't anyone come looking for her yet? The world around her was silent now, the kind of silence that pressed against her ears and made every breath feel too loud. She glanced around again, hoping for something familiar, but all she could see were the endless trees that stretched toward the sky. The light of day was fading, and she realized just how much time had passed. The growing darkness seemed to move toward her, swallowing the little light that remained. Her pulse quickened as she called out again, "Mom, Dad." But there was no answer. The only response was the eerie whisper of the wind. The forest was no longer a place of wonder. It was now a threatening, unknown entity, closing in around her. As the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness spread over the small town, Lily's parents realized something was terribly wrong. She had been gone far too long. Panic took hold as they scoured the backyard, shouting her name into the growing night. When there was no response, they didn't hesitate. They called the local authorities, who immediately organized a search party. Within an hour, neighbors, friends, and volunteers from nearby towns gathered at the edge of the forest. Flashlights flickered to life, casting beams into the thick, shadowy woods. Among the crowd were two German shepherds, Max and Bella, known in the community for their incredible tracking skills. Their handler, a seasoned search and rescue officer named Mr. Reynolds, knelt down, letting the dog sniff one of Lily's jackets. Instantly, their ears perked up and they tugged eagerly at their leashes, ready to begin the hunt. The forest seemed even more intimidating at night. Tall trees loomed overhead, and thick underbrush clawed at the searchers' legs as they pushed deeper into the woods. The search party fanned out, calling Lily's name over and over, their voices echoing through the darkness. Some carried lanterns, others used headlamps, but the light barely cut through the thick night air. Every now and then, a branch snapped underfoot, sending startled glances through the group. Max and Bella worked tirelessly, noses to the ground, weaving between the trees. They picked up Lily's scent quickly, but the trail was confusing. It seemed to loop and twist, as if she had wandered aimlessly in every direction. Still, the dogs pressed on, their instincts leading them forward, even when the humans hesitated. Hours ticked by. The volunteers grew tired, but no one even considered giving up. The thought of a little girl alone in the woods at night kept them moving. The forest felt different now. Darker, heavier, almost alive with an unsettling presence. Some of the volunteers whispered about it, but most were too focused on the task to entertain superstitions. Suddenly, Max barked sharply, a sound that echoed through the stillness. The search party froze, their hearts pounding. Mr. Reynolds urged the group forward, following the dog's urgent cries. Bella joined in, her bark sharp and insistent, pointing them toward a narrow trail that was almost invisible in the thick brush. "Over here," one of the volunteers shouted. The group rushed toward the noise, adrenaline surging through their veins. Hope flared in their chests. Maybe, just maybe, they were close. Max and Bella sprinted ahead, their bodies low to the ground, weaving through the trees with incredible speed. Their barks grew louder, more urgent. The humans struggled to keep up, but the dogs knew exactly where they were going. Every second mattered now. Somewhere, out there in the suffocating darkness, a little girl was waiting, alone, scared, and running out of time. Max and Bella pushed deeper into the woods, their powerful bodies cutting through the dense underbrush like arrows. Their barks echoed sharply in the still air, guiding the search party through the maze of trees. Mr. Reynolds stayed close behind, his flashlight bouncing wildly as he sprinted to keep up. His heart pounded with a mixture of fear and hope. He trusted the dogs completely. If they were this excited, they had found something important. The searchers struggled to keep pace, stumbling over roots and dodging low-hanging branches. Every rustle and snap in the forest seemed louder now, as if the night itself was holding its breath. As the group moved forward, the air grew noticeably colder, an unnatural chill that raised goosebumps on their arms. It was as if the forest was warning them to turn back. But no one did. They had come too far. Suddenly, Max stopped, barking furiously at a thick patch of brambles. Bella circled around, sniffing intently at the ground. Mr. Reynolds reached the spot moments later, shining his light into the tangled mess. His breath caught in his throat. There, caught in the thorny bushes, was a small, tattered piece of pink fabric. It was torn, snagged on a sharp branch, and there was no mistaking it. It belonged to Lily's jacket. "She's been here," Mr. Reynolds said, his voice tight. He carefully removed the fabric, holding it up for the others to see. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the group. They were close now, very close. Max and Bella continued barking, noses working overtime as they picked up a stronger scent. The dogs pushed past the brambles, following an invisible trail that twisted deeper into the woods. Mr. Reynolds waved the others on, shouting for them to spread out and keep searching. The tension was suffocating. Every step felt heavy, every shadow looked suspicious. Then something strange happened. The dogs, usually fearless and unstoppable, suddenly hesitated. They stood rigid, ears back, growling low in their throats. Mr. Reynolds had never seen them act like this before. It was as if they sensed something unseen, something that made even these brave animals uneasy. The search party slowed, feeling the shift in the air. The trees seemed to press closer, their twisted branches clawing at the sky. The wind picked up, carrying strange, faint sounds that none of them could explain. It was no longer just a search for a lost child. It felt like they were walking into something much darker. Mr. Reynolds steadied himself, giving Max and Bella a reassuring pat. Whatever lay ahead, they had to keep moving. Lily was out there, and she needed them. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, pushing past the fear that gripped his heart. The others followed, their faces set with determination. They had found a clue. Now they just had to find the girl. "You said." The deeper the search party ventured into the forest, the more the atmosphere shifted. The trees seemed to whisper secrets among themselves, their bare branches creaking in the restless wind. Even the bravest volunteers exchanged nervous glances, each one feeling a growing sense of unease they couldn't explain. Max and Bella moved cautiously now, their growls rumbling low as they sniffed the ground and the surrounding air. Mr. Reynolds tightened his grip on the dog's leashes, his instincts screaming that something wasn't right. It was more than just the cold or the darkness. It was as if the forest itself was alive, watching their every move. Every few steps, the dogs would stop, ears twitching at sounds no human could hear. Their behavior set everyone on edge. Without warning, Bella barked sharply and darted off the trail, dragging Mr. Reynolds with her. Max followed close behind, both dogs moving with purpose. The volunteers hurried after them, stumbling through the tangled undergrowth. Branches slapped at their faces and snagged at their clothes, but no one dared slow down. The forest seemed to close behind them as they moved, as if erasing the path they had just traveled. After what felt like an eternity, they stumbled into a small clearing. The moon broke through the clouds above, casting a pale silver light over the scene. In the center of the clearing was a massive, ancient tree, its gnarled roots twisting out of the earth like the claws of some sleeping giant. The dogs circled the tree, barking furiously. Their bodies were tense, their hackles raised high. Mr. Reynolds scanned the clearing, heart hammering in his chest. At first, he saw nothing. But then, just at the base of the tree, he spotted something, a small backpack half buried under a pile of leaves. He rushed over, brushing the leaves away to reveal the familiar unicorn patch stitched onto the fabric. It was Lily's backpack. "She was here," Mr. Reynolds said, his voice thick with emotion. He held the backpack up for the others to see. Gasps echoed around the clearing, but there was no sign of the girl herself. Suddenly, Max let out a sharp warning bark. Both dogs faced the forest's edge, their bodies rigid. Something moved in the shadows, just beyond the reach of the moonlight. It was too fast and too quiet for any of them to see clearly. The hairs on the back of Mr. Reynolds' neck stood on end. The volunteers huddled closer together, shining their flashlights into the darkness. Nothing appeared, but the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. Something, or someone, was out there, and it didn't want them to find Lily. Mr. Reynolds swallowed hard and gave the command to move forward. They had come too far to turn back now. Somewhere beyond the edge of the light, Lily was waiting, and time was running out. Max and Bella, though clearly uneasy, pushed ahead with renewed determination. Their loyalty and training outweighed their fear. Mr. Reynolds trusted them completely, and the volunteers, seeing the dog's courage, found new strength within themselves. They tightened their grip on their flashlights and pressed deeper into the forest, following the dogs along a barely visible trail. The cold air seemed heavier now, almost as if the forest itself was trying to slow them down. Every step was a battle against the twisting roots and thick underbrush. Yet, despite the strange sensations and growing tension, hope flared anew. They had found Lily's backpack. That meant she was close, maybe even close enough to hear them. "Lily," one of the volunteers called, voice strong and clear. "Lily, we're here. We're coming," shouted another. Their voices cut through the dense night, echoing off the trees. For a moment, there was only silence. But then, faintly, so faint that Mr. Reynolds almost thought he imagined it, there was an answering sound, a small, weak cry. Everyone froze, ears straining. There. Mr. Reynolds pointed toward a thicket where the sound had come from. Max and Bella barked excitedly, confirming what he had heard. Without hesitation, the group rushed forward, carefully parting the branches and pushing their way through. The trail became steeper, leading down into a shallow ravine hidden by thick brambles. The ground was slick and treacherous, but the volunteers navigated it carefully. As they reached the bottom, Bella let out a triumphant bark, her tail wagging furiously. There, curled up at the base of a fallen tree, was Lily. Her clothes were torn, and she was covered in dirt and scratches. She shivered violently in the cold, her small arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her wide, tear-filled eyes blinked against the sudden onslaught of flashlights. For a moment, she didn't seem to recognize the faces around her. "Lily, it's okay," Mr. Reynolds said gently, kneeling down beside her. "You're safe now. We're here to take you home." Max and Bella moved closer, their tails wagging softly as they licked Lily's hands and face. She let out a choked sob and threw her arms around Max's neck, burying her face in his thick fur. The entire search party felt a surge of relief, tears glistening in many eyes. But just as Mr. Reynolds reached for his radio to call for medical support, the dogs stiffened once again. Their ears pinned back and low growls vibrated in their chests. Mr. Reynolds looked up sharply, scanning the darkness beyond the ravine. The forest around them wasn't silent anymore. Something was moving, something that didn't sound friendly. They had found Lily, but their journey was far from over. Mr. Reynolds wasted no time. Cradling Lily gently in his arms, he motioned for the others to move quickly. The forest seemed to pulse around them, filled with sounds they could not see but could definitely feel. Max and Bella stayed close, flanking Mr. Reynolds like loyal guards, their bodies tense and alert. "Stay together," Mr. Reynolds ordered in a low voice. "No one falls behind." The volunteers nodded, their faces pale but determined. The group began to climb back up the slippery ravine, careful not to lose their footing. Lily whimpered softly, her small hands clutching Mr. Reynolds' jacket tightly. Every step was an effort, but the thought of getting Lily to safety pushed them all onward. Above the ravine, the forest seemed even darker and more twisted. The moonlight barely reached them now, and strange noises echoed between the trees. Twigs snapped under unseen footsteps, and the low growl of Max and Bella warned that whatever had been following them had not given up. Mr. Reynolds kept his flashlight sweeping across the trees, but the shadows seemed to dance just out of reach. The volunteers moved faster, hearts pounding as adrenaline surged through their veins. It was no longer a simple search and rescue. They were being hunted, or at least, that's how it felt. Suddenly, a loud crash sounded to their right. A tree branch snapped and fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Everyone froze for a heartbeat, staring into the darkness. Bella barked sharply and Max growled, his teeth bared in a rare display of aggression. "Move," Mr. Reynolds commanded, snapping everyone out of their fear. The group broke into a jog, pushing through the undergrowth with desperate energy. The path was rough and unkind, branches whipping at their faces and legs, but no one dared stop. Lily's safety was all that mattered now. Bella darted ahead, leading the way toward the trailhead where the first responders were supposed to be waiting. Max stayed by Mr. Reynolds' side, eyes scanning the woods. Every now and then, a shadow flickered between the trees, but whatever it was, it kept its distance. The sound of running water grew louder, a small creek they had crossed earlier. That meant they were getting closer to the forest's edge. Hope stirred in their chests, but no one let down their guard. Just as they reached the creek, Max suddenly veered to the left, barking furiously. Mr. Reynolds barely had time to react before a figure emerged from the trees ahead, cloaked in darkness. The group skidded to a halt, breathless and wide-eyed. What or who they had stumbled upon would change everything. The figure stepped into the moonlight, revealing a man dressed in rugged outdoor clothing. His face was rough and weathered, with deep-set eyes that gleamed strangely in the dim light. He raised his hands slowly, showing he held no weapon. Still, the tension among the group thickened instantly. Max and Bella stood in front of Mr. Reynolds and Lily, their bodies rigid and ready to defend. The volunteers instinctively tightened their circle, shielding Lily behind them. The only sounds were the growling of the dogs and the heavy breathing of the search party. The stranger spoke in a raspy voice. "I heard you calling. I'm here to help." Mr. Reynolds studied him carefully. Something about the man's sudden appearance, deep in the woods, didn't sit right. Yet they needed all the help they could get to get Lily to safety. "Who are you?" Mr. Reynolds asked sharply, keeping Lily close against his chest. The man hesitated, his eyes flicking toward the forest behind him. "Name's Carter. I live in a cabin not far from here. I saw the lights and heard the dogs." He paused, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "You're not alone out here. I've seen things." Mr. Reynolds exchanged a quick look with the others. Trust was risky, but so was staying where they were. "We need to get out of the woods fast," Carter said urgently. There's something moving out here tonight. You don't want to be caught when it finds you." Max let out a short bark as if agreeing. Mr. Reynolds made a quick decision. "All right," he said. "Lead us to the trailhead if you know a faster way." Carter nodded and motioned for them to follow. They moved quickly, guided by the stranger's confident steps. The forest around them grew denser and eerily quiet, the earlier rustling now replaced with an unnatural stillness. Lily clung tightly to Mr. Reynolds, occasionally whimpering in fear. Bella kept glancing backward, her ears pricked for any sound of pursuit. Max stayed close to Carter, clearly wary but ready to act if needed. After a few tense minutes, Carter pointed ahead. "There's an old service road about 200 yards that way. If we reach it, you're safe." Hope surged through the group again, giving their tired bodies new energy. They quickened their pace, hearts pounding with the desire to finally escape the forest's grip. But just as the service road came into sight, a blood-curdling howl echoed through the trees behind them, a sound so chilling it froze everyone in place. Whatever was out there wasn't ready to let them go. For a split second, no one moved. The chilling howl seemed to vibrate through the ground, rattling their bones and stealing the breath from their lungs. Max and Bella stood in front of the group, their bodies low and tense, teeth bared and growls rumbling from deep within their chests. Carter turned to Mr. Reynolds, his face grim. "Run. Now." Without waiting for another sound, Mr. Reynolds shifted Lily's weight in his arms and took off toward the service road. The volunteers surged forward, their flashlights bouncing wildly as they ran. Carter stayed close behind, glancing back every few seconds to check for whatever was pursuing them. The trees became a blur as they sprinted through the forest. Branches clawed at their clothes and faces, and the uneven ground threatened to trip them at every step. But adrenaline gave them strength, and the sight of the service road growing closer fueled their determination. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. Heavy steps crashed through the underbrush, and another howl, closer now, sent terror coursing through their veins. Max and Bella barked furiously, weaving between the group members as if herding them forward, protecting them from whatever hunted in the dark. As they broke through the last line of trees, the service road opened up before them like a silver ribbon under the moonlight. Parked along the road were several rescue vehicles, their lights flashing brightly, painting the night in red and blue. The first responders, alerted by the barking and cries for help, rushed forward. "We have her. We have Lily," Mr. Reynolds shouted, his voice hoarse. The rescuers surged toward them, taking Lily from Mr. Reynolds' arms and wrapping her in a warm blanket. EMTs quickly began assessing her condition, checking her pulse and injuries. Lily, though exhausted and scared, managed a tiny smile when she saw Max and Bella sitting beside her, tails wagging gently. Mr. Reynolds, gasping for breath, turned to thank Carter, but the stranger was gone. He had disappeared into the trees as suddenly as he had appeared. No one had seen him leave, and no sign of him remained. It was as if he had been a ghost, sent to guide them when they needed it most. The rescuers ushered the volunteers toward the ambulances, checking everyone for injuries. Max and Bella were praised as heroes, receiving pats, hugs, and treats from grateful hands. As they drove away from the edge of the forest, safe at last, Mr. Reynolds glanced back through the window. The forest loomed dark and still, holding its secrets close. They had escaped, but the memory of that night and the mysterious force within the woods would stay with them forever. And at the center of the incredible rescue, two German shepherds proved once again that sometimes true heroes walk on four legs.